So we're on our week 3 of looking at the 12 laws of karma. We spent week 1 and we looked at the first law, and that was the law of cause and effect. And then last week we talked about the law of creation. And so this week we're going to look at the law of humility. And you're sort of probably going, what is this thing? What do you mean, the law of humility? What is that about? It's about that we must, this is really important, we must accept something before we can change it. If we deny something, we're not facing it, and if we're not facing it, we're not putting attention on it, and it cannot change. As I witnessed and experienced last night in the breakthrough, there was an individual who was struggling really hard about some horrific event that happened when this person was a child. The interesting thing is, after all the work that got done, it wasn't an event at all, but a child's imagination that had fabricated a larger story around something much smaller. And you see, when we don't accept something at the time that it's happening for what it is, our minds will naturally do what? We embellish things. We build them up. We make them more dramatical. My wife has been with me for she's been with me for 45 and a half years, married for 44 and a half. Let me tell you, stories I told 40 years ago, I've added a lot of meat. I've created these stories that are just amazing. Funny thing is, she's a good wife and she buys into them. Do you notice I qualified that and I said a good wife? And I did that purposely, because there's no such thing as a good wife. There's really a wife. And we're going to get into this idea of one-sided life and what we look at and how we look at life and how that is a source of all depression, anxiety, fear, failure, guilt, shame, regret. And so until we accept something, we can't change it. Till you know it's there, you can't change it, because you got to put your focus on something. So many times, what do we do as humans? We repress things. We repress them, we bury them in us. And how does it demonstrate? It demonstrates in our physical body as stress. It demonstrates in our body as excess weight. It demonstrates in our body with health challenges. It demonstrates in so many ways that it's hard to predict. It demonstrates in a lack of abundance. When you repress something, what are you saying to the universe? I'm not worthy. The second you say to the universe, I'm not worthy, what does the universe do? It says, of course you're not. The universe doesn't deny what you tell it. This is the key thing about this law of karma. The law of karma is just there. It produces what you are, who you are. It doesn't judge it. It doesn't say, well, this is the best thing for you. No, it doesn't care. Because why? Because the universe, God, infinite intelligence, has given you freedom. You have perfect freedom. That's the greatest gift of all. And the thing that causes us more pain, more anxiety than anything is when we feel that we don't have that freedom. But so many times when it comes to dealing with issues, we'd rather have someone tell us what to do than to choose what is ours to do. When we do that, what are we saying to the universe again? I'm not worthy. See what I'm getting at? Humility is the ability to accept the truth about what you are and who you've been. It's about you seeing that there is nothing I need to judge. I need to accept. So I want to go to the next point, and that is, when we accept something, we establish a baseline. We establish a platform. And once we have a platform, we now have a place that we can build from. In other words, we're creating a slab foundation by building that baseline. And once we have the foundation, we can now build a house on top of it. But until we have a foundation, we're not building on solid ground, and whatever we build is going to fall. So what you want to make sure you're doing is, as you're creating your life, you want to accept who you are, what you've done, where you are. Know that that's where you're bracing it from. And then now build and know that you can change whatever you put on top of it. Does that make sense? You have the freedom to change whatever you put on top of it. Remember, humility teaches us that we are no better than anyone else, and nobody else is better than us. That's humility. It's not about, oh, they're so good. Oh, they're that much better. I've got to be humble to them. Oh, he's a minister. I must give him the due respect of being a minister. You know, when we put people on platforms, we diminish ourselves. When we look down at people, we're raising ourselves up. And both of those are nonsense, because we're all unique and whole and perfect individualizations of the one mind. There is nothing better or worse about any human being. There's just differences. And that's what we fail to do. We fail to look at, well, that person's doing like that. That's right, they're different. They have a different way they want to be in life. I don't have to have an opinion about that. This is a really tough thing, not having opinions. I love having opinions. Sometimes my wife will come to me. She goes shopping. Lee, I got 3 dresses. I said, wonderful. She said, I'd like you to look at them. I said, you sure? I have opinions. And I'm not going to use anything recent. I'm going to go back many, many, many years. And she had this one dress. No, it was a skirt. And the stripes went like this. And I said, honey, excuse me if I offend you, I'm going to say it anyway. A woman should never wear stripes going this way on her tush. Stripes in the direction they're going accentuate. Now, that didn't serve me very well. That put me in the doghouse for several days back then, because we were not spiritually mature at that time, and so the wrath of Gene was afflicted upon Lee, which Lee now understands that he created that wrath. So I want you to know I was not a victim of this woman. I was a creator of my own. Okay. So then when we're humble, here's the key thing about humble. We see our lives in balance. And there we can accept ourselves for who we truly are. And this is where I'm going to base the rest of my talk. Humility is a state where we are no longer attached to seeing a one-sided life and now can live a balanced life. This is what I did all day yesterday in the breakthrough experience with John. I basically took an individual and I wanted to balance my perception of that individual out so that individual would no longer have a charge in my life. And this is my 5th time. So the individual that I chose for this event, let me see if they're there. They're here. Yes, they are. And he's right in front of you. It's me. I chose to look at my whole life and see what it is that I admired most about me and what it is most I disliked about myself. And then I had to take those qualities and I had to say, okay, what is it I most liked about myself? And I had to find out, how did that serve me? How did that serve others? How did that hurt me? How did that hurt others? Then I had to take the qualities I disliked. How did that hurt me? How did that benefit me? How did that hurt others? How did that bend others? And so when you're doing this and you're going 30, 40 examples into each of these in your life, specific examples into your life, what you're doing is you're collapsing your former views and you're coming into a state of divinity, a state of equanimity, a state of being equanimous, where you see life is in balance. In most spiritual movements, we teach a concept called forgiveness. That's a spiritual concept that's based on an anthropomorphic God. Do you understand what I say when I say an anthropomorphic God? Some don't. Anthropomorphic God is an idea of beingness where we've taken something greater than us and we've attached human qualities to it. So humans have taken this idea of God and given God and made it a superhuman, that this God judges and this God has feelings and we must worship it. And I'm saying, if this God is infinite, all-knowing, everywhere present, always has been, always will be, and everything is, and a unique and divine expression of it, of which it has given itself through its uniqueness, complete freedom, there is no judgment happening anywhere other than the judgment within the uniqueness, within the points of consciousness that we represent toward ourselves, and that judgment is allowing us to see where we are so we can judge where we want to go next, where we can discern where we want to go next. So forgiveness is poppycock. Because to forgive, you've got to ask someone for forgiveness. The question and the process is not about being forgiving. The equanimous, the process is about seeing that with every good there's something else, with every negative there's something else, so you're coming back to a state of balance. One of the processes that when I taught forgiveness as such, and it's really a process of releasing an event that no longer feels good, is I would tell people on one side of a piece of paper, write down everything that was wrong. This person divorced me. Okay, tell me everything about that son of a gun. Now on this side of the paper, write down everything on how you were benefited. You see, you write those lists like that until you get them in balance. And when you've got them in balance, there's no longer an emotional charge. Without an emotional charge, you're free. You're actually living in a state of equanimity or a state of divine love or divine grace. See, that's the beauty of understanding simple processes. So when we start to see and we become attached to a one-sided life, and this is something that happens in most New Thought churches, most law of attraction people. And this is why people fall away, why people are struggling and that type of thing. I'm the creator of my life. I'm only going to attract good. I'm only going to attract the perfect people. I'm only going to attract this. I'm only going to attract this. I'm only going to attract this. And they attract other things. Because it's an unrealistic expectation. If you're only attracting one thing, then you're bored. You have to have the other side to stimulate further growth. So if you married a man 20 years ago, or you married a woman 20 years ago, and it was perfect at that time, but over the last 5 or 6 years, it's no longer serving. It's probably because when I brought into marriage, my wife was there to serve me. Not true, but that's what I thought. My wife was there for my pleasure. My wife was there for my convenience. I didn't realize that my wife was there to both support and challenge me. See, that's where a mature relationship comes in. A mature relationship is based on the fact that there's always equal support and challenge. And you understand each other and you understand where you want to be, and so that you're supporting each other toward that. Now, if that wasn't the basis at the beginning, then maybe the relationship of the 20-year marriage is not the right relationship any longer. Because, this idea of married for life, that's a man-made constructed concept. I think we partner for however long the relationship serves us. For me, this relationship that I'm in right now has served me for 44 and a half years. I have friends that they've been in 7, 8 relationships. And each of those relationships served them purposely for the period of time that they were there. Remember, the whole purpose of a relationship is to support and grow you. It's not to support and grow you and support and grow them and that the two of you remain together for eternity. No, life is always in the moment. The divine only exists in a moment. I remember when I was in the corporate world and I had this most magnificent woman that worked for me. And she was the most optimistic, joyful, magnificent woman. I loved her. And I'm not going to use her name because who knows, she might see this, but she knows who she is. And she would talk about that when she died, her little husband would be there to greet her. And he would lay kisses on her forehead, and then they would go on to the next life together, and the next life together, and the next life together, and the next life together. And I said, wow, you've really taken this marriage thing pretty damn far. What if he gets bored with you in the next life? But you see, she created an anthropomorphic view of eternal life. That we must be attached to someone. Do you realize that marriage amongst, the only reason there was marriage amongst the wealthy was why? To pass the money down the lineage. And then as the lower class got more money, they got married. Why? To hold the money in the lineage. And so you found that this idea of marriage is something that's really become popular in the last 150 years. We think it's been for thousands of years. It's not the case. In the old days, when the dinosaurs were around and man was living amongst the dinosaurs, I didn't get any laugh out of that. That's really the purpose was, how do we survive, raise family, and grow together? The dinosaur comes, eats the wife, new wife. It was an easy thing back then. There was no such thing as divorce. You just leave your spouse out on the patio and the dinosaur comes and gets her. Think about that. You go outside and you see the flying pterodactyl. Oh, honey, the dog's loose. It wants you to help it over here. Shh. Gone. That was not in my plan. I liked it, though, but it wasn't in my plan. You see, the idea is, I'm trying to get you to think about one-sided. Well, I'm going to have a job where everyone's going to be nice to me. I'm going to have a job where everyone is nice to me, everyone is considerate, everyone is this. Never going to happen. Never, ever, ever going to happen. Because there will always be people that have different values, because everyone has different values, and every value has different wants, different desires, and they're not going to be aligned with you, and so there's always going to be a conflict. A conflict simply means that values don't line up together. But what you can do is, if you're there and you can understand this concept, then you can see how when this challenge occurs, it's really causing you to be more open, more receptive to seeing it in a different way, and you can see, how can I grow into this? How can I be a part of this? How can I see that the life is in balance? See, this is what we do. When you're in a relationship and things are looking funky, how's your life in balance? That's the question you ask. Where am I being supported when I'm being challenged? And this is an interesting thing. Yesterday, in the moment, I remember the question several years ago when I was doing my mother. In the moment when my mother died, in that moment, who supported me? Who took my mother's place? In that exact moment when my mother died, who popped into my mind? How did someone come and support? And it was really clear. My wife. She took over all that energy that my mom had supported with me. But I didn't realize it until I went and said, at this critical moment, what was the thing? Because remember, the universe cannot stand a void. There can never be a void in the universe. So when we release something immediately takes its place. Most of the time, though, we're not even aware because we think it's got to be the specific person. It could be a division amongst 8 people. There could be different events that come in to replace one type of event. You following where I'm going? So there's always balance happening. The universe is a self-balancing mechanism that it's balancing infinite number of things. Think about the planets, the solar systems, the galaxies. They're always rebalancing. A black hole comes in, stars disappear, everything just gets rephrased, rebalanced. It's all in rhythm. Our lives are in rhythm too. But we have to see that there's a rhythm to life. To everything, turn, turn, turn. Remember the song? There is a season, turn, turn, turn. A time for this, a time for that. There's always that. And you see, when we can embrace that idea, we're no longer attached to a one-sided life. and we've created peace in our lives. Do you see that? We have created peace in our lives. We don't need anyone else to create peace. We've bought into the idea that we have to succeed at any cost at what we do and not accept anything else. And in that idea alone, we are living in a complete, total case of inner war. Because we're looking for one thing only, and we're not willing to accept that there's always balance. So when you get into a perfect state of meditation, what happens? All thoughts disappear. When all thoughts disappear, there is no conflict. Peace. If you take this thought that's one way, this thought the other, and they balance each other out, peace. Do you see how it is? That's where God is. That's where God is in your life right now. I invite you today to spend 5 minutes just sitting in the quiet and asking yourself, where is my life out of balance? And say, what is out of balance? Where am I more challenged? And then question, where am I supported? And where are you supported? Ask, where am I challenged? And see for yourself how you are the master of your destiny.
I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.